Hello, and thank you all for joining me today. My lifelong journey started almost 6 years ago. At age 19, aren't we invincible? Nothing could stop us. Rules? Well, they were for dummies. Boy, was I wrong. Fate had other plans for me. A bigger lesson than what we would learn in school. But I'll get to that a little later. The day was April 10th, 2006. That day would change the rest of my life. I was a freshman at Georgian Court University. I was dorming at the time. We were approaching the end of the semester. A lot of stress was put on us with finals and projects due right around the corner. That seemed to weigh really heavy on my shoulders, and was all I could think about. My friend Brittany suggested that I take a break from all the homework and studying and go get some lunch, but of course the dining hall was closed. Being college students, we didn't have much money. I knew my parents had cooked a huge Italian dinner the night before, and that there was plenty left over. We jumped into my car and I began to drive home. Who would have guessed that that was going to be the longest drive home ever? As we were driving, we approached a construction site, which detoured us onto unfamiliar roads. We then approached a stop sign, and I realized we were so lost. I called my mom at work, and she said she didn't really know the area too well, and to call my boyfriend Chris, who was a little more familiar with this area. So I called him, and he said continue straight and make a left at the next stop sign. We approached the next stop sign, and it was hard to see due to overgrown trees, so I slightly eased up. I began to look left, then right, then left again. As my head turned, I looked out my window. A 17-passenger white van was coming my way. Slam! The next thing I knew, my friend Brittany was frantically calling my name. She told me I lost consciousness for about a minute. She said she was fine, and she wasn't hurt at all. I walked out of the car with what at the time I thought was not a scratch on me, just a bad headache and a stiff neck. Wow, was I wrong. I don't know how my mother and my boyfriend arrived at the scene. The police officer was very nice and asked me to go to the hospital. I refused. I was too scared. My mom, being a nurse, knew I had a mild concussion and told me to go to the hospital. I still refused. I was thinking more, oh my god, my dad is so going to be mad at me. I just totaled the car he bought me not that long ago. I thought he was going to freak. He didn't, thank God. He was just so happy I was okay. Later that night, I wasn't. At around 3 a.m., my right leg jumped into the air. I woke up out of a sound sleep, then my left leg. Then they were jumping back and forth, uncontrollably shaking. I had no idea what was going on with my body. My boyfriend stayed over that night to keep an eye on me and make sure everything was okay. Everyone knew I was shaken up from this accident. Great words to use, huh? Shaken? My whole body was shaking. It was out of control, completely involuntary. I jumped out of bed, holding onto walls and shaking my way to my parents' room, which was right down the hall. I finally reached their room. It felt like it took forever to get there. I opened the door and I screamed, "Mommy, help me." I, they jumped out of bed. My mom ran to me and caught me before I fell. I had run out of walls to hold, and I was going down fast. I would describe my tremors almost like an epileptic having a seizure, but being completely conscious through it all. My parents and my boyfriend rushed me to the hospital. The hospital was no help. They sent me home, claiming that I only had restless leg syndrome. The pain was so bad, my legs were shaking for 18 hours straight. Felt like I was on an exercise machine I couldn't get off of. My doctor was finally there. They didn't do major testing and scan. He knew something was wrong. Besides the herniated disc, a contusion, which is bruising on my spine, inflammation of the spinal cord, and nerve damage. But he just didn't know what. I have been through years of testing. Doctors may know a lot about the human body. However, there's still a lot they don't know. I thought doctors knew everything about the human body. After getting so many tests done, and seeing so many different doctors, one doctor suggested that I get exploration surgery. They wanted to see what was going on in there. The only thing with that is, I had a 50% chance of becoming permanently paralyzed from the surgery. Putting a name to why I cannot walk some of the time was not worth risking my ability to walk ever again. To me and my family, it was just not worth the risk to put a name to my disability, because regardless of what they called it, there was nothing they could do about it. So I named it myself, the Shakes. After so many years of dealing with this disability, I have learned to deal with the struggles of my handicap. My, my disabilities came with other major struggles. I had to reteach myself how to walk again and how to become more independent and doing things for myself again. I was told I had to accept that I could not be as independent as I once was. At the age of 19, that was hard to accept. Even to the little things, such as writing and holding a pencil in my hand without shaking and dropping it. I had to learn stuff as if I was a toddler. With each relapse, this process starts all over again. The other thing I had to adjust to every time I'm back in a wheelchair is when strangers approach me. They tend to talk louder and much slower, as if the wheelchair makes me deaf or cognitively impaired. Yes, I was the kid who would stare at people who looked different. I learned the hard way, we do not like to be stared at. We are like everybody else. I remember before my accident, I would see a person who was handicapped, struggling with something. I wanted to help them, but I didn't, because I heard one time that they wanted to be independent. They wanted to do things for themselves. That was the dumbest advice I have ever heard. If you see someone struggling, don't make them struggle, help them. So I leave you with this. I have learned three major things from this accident. One, anything can happen to anyone. Anything happen to you. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, black, white, young, or old. Life is short. Live and have fun, but be responsible with what you are doing. And last, family is the most important. You may think, like I did at 19, your friends are always there for you no matter what. They come first. At the time, yeah, I chose my friends rather than having family time. But when it came down to it, and you're in a position like mine, and and you are no longer able to do the normal stuff that other teenage kids can do, you will see. You will see who your true friends are. Most of you are probably thinking, oh no, not my best friends. They would always have my back. Well, for your sake, I hope they do. But if not, you always have family. Never take your family for granted. They are always there for you, even at your worst. As you can see, yes, I am back in the wheelchair. I have had another relapse. But don't feel bad for me. I feel I'm just one of the lucky ones. I have learned a lot, especially that family, well, my family, to me, is number one. And I am happy to say that I got the chance to learn my life lessons early, and I can truly live life the way it was intended. I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to my story.